Who are we? So those who are new, hopefully you know that the host of this event and all these series is Client Success. Client Success is a customer success platform. We have great content. We like to do those things, but we do it all because we are a platform provider in this space. We're a customer success platform. We help B2B SaaS companies manage the entire customer experience from new to renew. Everything from onboarding the customers, measuring customer health, and maximizing revenue through renewal motions, expansion motions, and all those. We're grateful for all of our customers who are on the call today. Thank you for being great partners. And anybody else, we'd love to show you our platform at any time. So please reach out to us. There's a couple things we do, though. We love to engage with the community. So there's a few things beyond these webinars that we do. Let me share a couple. One is that right now, hopefully you've seen on social media or received an email from us. We're doing our annual 2023 State of Customer Success survey. We really encourage you to participate in that survey. I'll drop some of the links in the chat so that you can participate. But this just gives us an opportunity to get feedback from the global customer success community about your strategy, your tool sets, your compensation plans, all these different things that we like to gather and we'll compile and share back with the community. And so we'd love for you to participate so that we can benchmark and share these insights back with you to kind of see how your program, your strategy aligns with others throughout the world. So we encourage you to participate in that. That'll be running all the month of August. The second thing we want to make you aware of is our annual CS100 Summit. This is the premier customer success event for customer success leaders and executives. And if anybody's been there who's on the call today, maybe share in chat your experience with CS100. We'd love to. We host this every year in the fall in September. This year it's September 25th through 27th at the amazing Sundance Mountain Resort. It's an incredible location. And what we like to do is bring the best customer success leaders and executives together for 3 days of great content, great networking, and amazing experiences. So we encourage you to go to cs100.clientsuccess.com, check out everything about the summit and register for it. And we hope you can join us in September. We got Dale coming back for his third one. Thanks, Dale. He's always been great to be there. And then the last thing, again, is as a software company, we're doing kind of a unique end of summer sale. So if you are looking for a customer success platform at the moment, we'd love to give you a demo. Those who take a demo between now and August 31st, you could be qualified for a 20% discount. If you have a solution and you want to change, we'll help you do that. We'll buy you out of that. If you haven't had a solution, we'd love to show you ours. But we'd like to do that and also do a promotion for our current customers as they introduce us to those looking for customer success platforms. So if that's of interest to you, just go to info.clientsuccess.com/20 off, and you could register there and be eligible for that promo. So we'd love to have you for our end of summer sale. All right, I think that's it. So this is welcome. We want to welcome everybody to our webinar today. My name's Dave Blake. I'm the founder and CEO of Client Success, and we're super stoked to have you with us today. This is part of another amazing one as part of our summer webinar series. We've had great leaders throughout the summer, and today's no different. We're excited to have Jonathan with us today. We also have a few others, and Dan join us, Anita and Swati in the coming weeks. But today, we're particularly excited. I'm especially excited to have my friend and former colleague and just one of the greatest guys I know, Jonathan Corbin, join us today for this webinar. Jonathan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Dave. It's always a pleasure when I have the opportunity to chat with you, especially about CS, something that I think we both have quite a bit of experience in pretty early on in terms of customer success and that evolution. So I always learn something from it. Looking forward to the conversation today.
Well, good. We're excited to have you. Today's kind of an interesting topic that we're going to talk about, kind of continuing on from our topic last week where we talked a lot about AI. We're going to talk about disrupting or being disruptive by AI and how to revolutionize the customer experience through AI. And looking forward to the discussion. As I said earlier, we want to make this very engaging. And so I know there's a lot of people out there who are trying to figure out, how do I leverage AI now individually and collectively as a team? As you have questions on anything, feel free to drop them in the Q&A, as I said earlier, on this topic and other topics. But before we jump in on the topic, Jonathan, for those, I know a lot of people know you, but maybe not know your entire story. Do you want to share, like, today you're the CEO and co-founder of Maven AGI, but you've recently been with HubSpot, being a senior VP there of customer success and experience there, and some other great experiences. Maybe share a little bit about your journey in customer success, and how did you end up where you are today as a founder of a co-founder and CEO of a new company?
Yeah. Thanks for that setup, Dave. It's funny because my first job out of school, I was writing code. I was a programmer,
Uh-huh.
and that's what I really enjoy doing. Um, and at some point, I was doing my MBA, and someone said, "Hey, there's this company called Unica. You should
Yeah.
really go chat with them. They're doing some really interesting stuff in kind of the go-to-market space, and they're one of the very early innovators in terms of creating a marketer-friendly interface for developing marketing campaigns." And I like to joke that that was the beginning of my love affair with go-to-market companies.
Mhm.
And so I spent some time at Unica, and then joined WPP, spent about 2.5 years there, working with a lot of large global brands like Coca-Cola on helping them draft their 10-year journey. And I had a team of about 60 people around the world who were working with these amazing brands. And so had an opportunity to travel, see a little bit more of the digital and marketing landscape beyond just in the US. Spent some time with like AstraZeneca and Best Buy when that used to be a big thing. They're doing an international expansion. It was really interesting. And as I spent more time with these big brands, I realized how valuable the technology was to be able to implement these things. A lot of the things they were doing by hand, I worked with like Nokia on their global branding, and so you had people in all these different geos speaking these different languages, trying to create these websites in like 40 different languages, and it was a very manually intensive effort. And so I spent a bunch of time working with a company called Omnisure. And I was like, man, these guys have amazing technology. I think I was working with their test and target team. Loved it. And I was having some conversations with him, like, you should just join us. You've spent a bunch of time in this. And that was actually how I met you, Dave.
All right.
Ended up chatting. I think it was one of the longest interview processes I've ever gone through in my entire career. I think I talked to 16 different people, and the culmination of that was in Utah. I was in a conference room. I think there was like 6 or 7 people. There's some really tough questions being thrown at me. Things like, "What was the last business book you read?" And I was like, "Okay, man, you guys are making me sweat here." And so I spent 5 years there. That's, of course, where I met you and learned a ton from you about customer success, as Omniture was getting acquired by Adobe, and going through that evolution from kind of a B2B business, creating a SaaS offering. And then I left, started a company. It was a company called Veer. We created a product where we understood destination intent of where consumers were going. And so we're able to engage with them around that. We exited that. Spent some time at Marketo, where we got acquired by Vista Equity Partners, and joined Sprinkler, where I was the VP of customer success there in their account management organization. Spent a couple of years there before joining HubSpot, where I spent the last 4 years. And so at HubSpot, it was a pretty remarkable last 4 years. I joined when we were about 700 million in revenue. We went from 700 million revenue to 2.2 billion revenue over the past 4 years. And my team went from 238 people to almost 1,000.
Crazy.
And so, we had customers in 175 out of 179 countries. And we were able to drive our revenue retention up by about 20 points, improve our cancellations by 10 points. And so, had a remarkable team, remarkable product, and a great company to work at. So that's where I've spent the last 4 years. Before seeing the opportunity for me to be able to build some of the tools that I wish I'd had over the past 4 years, being at one of the five fastest growing B2B companies ever after $1 billion, and saying, I've grown my team in a very linear fashion. The more customers that I added, the more people I had to add. And we have an amazing CFO at HubSpot. Kate's incredible.
Yeah.
But every year she would come to me around budget season and she would say, "Hey, Jonathan, I love the results that you're bringing. Your people are amazing. Customers love us. But I need like $10 billion back, please." And she was very kind about it, but she always wanted money back. And she was like, the rule was you had to become more efficient with your dollars as you continue to grow. And, you do the traditional thing of, okay, first I'll move people to Bogota. And I love the people in Bogota. We had an amazing team there. But after you do that once, it's really hard to get those kind of gains again. And so as I was looking for the opportunity to, how do I do a better job of scaling my team? What I realized is with the emergence of new technology like large language models and the capabilities around AI that have emerged, we now had tools that had the ability to reason, had the ability to digest large volumes of information and infinite knowledge. And so you could use that to be able to engage with your customers and deliver a great and sometimes even better experience than humans could.
Yeah.
So you asked a very short question, Dave, and I gave you the very long answer.
That's all right. No, it's an incredible journey that like just your experience and like I said, we had an amazing experience together at Omniture and Adobe, where we learned how to engage with the top brands in the world, and it's been cool to see how you've gone to those and let out in those. With AI, I mean, I guess the question I'd ask the group is like, how many are you, and maybe in the chat if you answer, how many of you are in that position where you're being forced or asked by your executive team to scale your team in unnatural ways? And so maybe if for those online, if you want to raise your hand virtually or whatever, but that was really the problem that you were in, right? Had an amazing team and just trying to figure out how to use scale. So what's your thought process for those who are in that position and maybe don't have another option? If
Yeah.
what would be your advice for those who are sitting there and saying, I have very limited resources. I am sitting in a situation where I need to scale. How would you recommend going through that thought process for those leaders that are sitting in that position?
Yeah, I think the traditional options have always been, okay, great. I will evaluate, my resource and say, how do I continue to serve the right segment of customers? And so you might start off with saying, there's a certain level of customer, a certain segment of customer that I'm going to like allow to self-serve. And it becomes kind of a free for all. And there might be some digital aspects to it. Maybe you'll use some like great technology like client success to be able to engage with them at scale. Or, you start with doing what I did, which was saying, hey, I'm going to see if I can like tap into a lower cost locale, like Bogota or India or Vietnam. And you kind of start there. And I think the third option, and this is relatively new, is around AI. It's actually being able to understand what is the thing that you're trying to accomplish. And that's fundamental, whether you're using AI or whether you're building your own success organization, saying, what is the thing that we're trying to accomplish? For us at HubSpot, what we were trying to do is we were trying to increase our revenue retention. And so, that's kind of the point that we're approaching it from. And the challenge with kind of taking some of those traditional steps of saying, well, our smallest customers, we're going to like let them self-serve, is those customers also have the most potential for you to drive revenue retention. And so seeing if there is maybe a different track for you to pursue in terms of how you stay engaged with those customers, how you drive engagement, how you actually create results for them, is something I think that's going to have to be a fundamental component of every CS leader's thought process as they're going into planning.
Yeah. So maybe I agree. We have to be creative in any way, and technology and AI is one of the best ways at the moment. Maybe let's kind of go back to the fundamentals here, and maybe give your definition of what is AI, and why is everybody talking about it right now?
Yeah.
And why should everybody on this call get educated as quickly as possible on the capabilities there?
Yeah. What's interesting is that like AI has existed for a very long time, right? Like it was called different things. I'm sure many of you heard like machine learning, right? That was kind of the early version of AI. But over the past couple of years, we've actually seen some massive steps forward in terms of our capabilities. And a lot of it's coming from the capabilities from a computing perspective, where we're actually able to have these, like they call them large language models. And basically, companies like OpenAI, I'm sure many of you have tried like ChatGPT, you've downloaded it on your phone and you've entered in stuff into it like, hey, how do I like create a cool headline if I was, a Patriots fan and I wish they were winning Super Bowls? What would that look like? And it will create a very beautiful dialogue for you of what you could dream about if the Patriots were to go back to the Super Bowl. But it's a poet, it's an artist. It can do so many things because it's trained on the entire internet. And so the challenge for a lot of people has been, well, how do I harness that technology and how do I apply it to specific functions? Now, there's a lot of challenges. It's really new. There's kind of a bunch of competitors in the place that are doing similar things. And so I think there's a lot of companies and a lot of people who are thinking, how do I harness that capability? And a lot of people, I think it's like, hey, we have a product and we'll sprinkle some like chat GPT on top and do some prompt engineering, and it's going to magically come out with the answer. It doesn't work well. And so I think it's like, when you're thinking about AI as it's a component of your strategy, first think about what is it that you're trying to accomplish. And then the second part is that, how do you understand what the technology is, what it's doing, and how it can be applied to your business.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. So, do you just a couple questions that I would ask is, we're all familiar. It seems like OpenAI and GPT kind of opened the doors of possibilities, and that you're going to see a next generation of products that maybe have it embedded from the beginning versus kind of retrofitting them in, which a lot, including client success, we've added our own capabilities called Smart CS, which is our generative AI capabilities that our customers are super excited about. But if I'm a leader on this call, or I'm a CSM on the call, how is it relevant to me? Maybe I don't have a product where I can harness it, or that's built there, but can I take advantage of some of these AI capabilities today now? And what are some examples that I could do and leverage? What could I leverage as a CSM today?
Yeah, I think if you're a CSM and you're looking at your workflow, right? So you probably have 4 or 5 calls a day with customers. And so, what you can do is you can start using that with public information to be able to prepare for those calls. So one of the things that I used to do is I would go through 10Ks for customers that I had. Fidelity was one of my customers when I was a CSM. And so I would go through their 10K. Hey, how does the business make money? So that way I understand what's important to them in the calls that I'm going to have with the CMO or the senior executives. And so a great way for you to use technology now is like, hey, here's the 10K for Fidelity or a customer that you're working with. Uh, you know, Give me the kind of TLDR from it. How are they making money? How are they losing money? Where are they making investments? And actually will like give you a really cool kind of synthesis of what's going on there. If you don't feel like reading through hundreds of pages of financial documents. I don't know if I enjoyed it, but I certainly got used to doing it. So I think that's a really cool way to do it. And then you can actually kind of take some of that information, and maybe you're trying to engage with your audience and say, hey, cool, like write me an email to engage with a senior audience member, using some of this information is kind of like a lead gen technique to get them to engage with me. One of the things that we had at Adobe, and Dave, you probably remember this very well, was we had to expand kind of our reach within the organization. And so, one of the goals you had is like, hey, you need to engage with X number of senior leaders
Yeah.
kind of outside of the current sphere that you're in. And so that's a really great way for you to do that. If you're a CSM, you want to expand your reach within an organization. The others is like, there's of course rules in different organizations where there's kind of limits in terms of what you can feed it in terms of proprietary information, but it's very good at helping you to kind of build some structure around emails. Maybe if you're looking at expanding your network, if you're looking at synthesizing data. So those are some very easy ways you get started using it. You don't need anything proprietary to it. You can go into OpenAI and ChatGPT and use that today.
Yeah, no, I love it. I use it every day. It's kind of my new Google, if you will, and it's
Yeah,
I go there more than, and I call it Chatty is how what I call it is my nickname for it.
yeah,
But it seems like that I love it as well as to help me write content to refine concepts that are in my mind, that I leverage for customers or emails. I also love it in a sense of like summarizing data in a
hmm
sense where you can kind of explore data sets by dropping it in. What are some, like, I know there's some out there, if you're frontline and you're trying to and you have somebody in your company. We've had some of our customers who've come back and they've asked about security and privacy concerns. If I'm leveraging it on my own, is there some of that I should be aware of? Should I think about that, uh,
yeah.
as you use AI?
A lot of companies have restrictions in place and say, hey, we don't, I know, Amazon's a really good example where it's like, hey, you shouldn't be using ChatGPT. You shouldn't be entering any company information into it. And what happens when you kind of enter your information into ChatGPT is it uses that information to be able to train future models. And so companies are, of course, very sensitive to private information being shared with a model that's going to be publicly available. And so, as you're looking at, various kind of solutions around, how do you utilize generative capabilities within your organization, like looking at security and privacy, how they're retaining your data, how they're using in terms of building their models is something that's pretty important. So yeah, I would, if you're a CSM and you're like, hey, I'm just going to upload the entire like CRM database to it, probably a bad idea. Don't do that. Check with your legal and IT teams first. I don't think they'll be very happy about it.
Yeah, thank you for the warning. I agree. That just got to be careful. They're super powerful, but also just understanding the downstream impacts and ramifications from a privacy is super important. So, what are some of the best, if you're a customer success team again? Like, well, I guess what maybe outside of customer success, where do you think that AI can have the biggest impact on the customer experience? From different departments, from product, from support, from knowledge
Yeah.
base, from where do you think is are the best opportunities to leverage AI, within an organization, within a company?
I think support is a natural entry point for AI where, you have kind of a finite number of questions that can be created. And so it's very easy to kind of start there. And when you look at kind of support, a lot of people say, oh, well, support's kind of a burden on the enterprise. I actually look at it a different way. I think support is actually a great place to start because you understand all the challenges that you have throughout your organization. You understand when like maybe sales misled a customer a little bit, or they didn't have full comprehension of the capabilities there. Or maybe like onboarding wasn't perfect, or there's some gaps from a product perspective. You'll understand all of those by looking at support tickets.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's pretty cool to actually like start with that as your entry point from an AI perspective and say, let's understand those and we can fix those upstream. But kind of starting at the like a top level view of where you can apply AI, Dave, I think it's actually kind of saying there's an application for AI in any area of the company that is a headcount driven model. And so you look at sales, you look at success, you look at support, And I think that we're going to see over the next couple of years, AI starting to create more efficiencies in those areas of the business, where people are going to spend more time, kind of engaging with customers, helping them through those strategic conversations that they really want to have with the CSMs or with their sales team, versus saying like, you know what, like, let me pound the phones and like, call 30 different customers. Kind of like doing these things that don't necessarily need a sophisticated level of understanding of products or areas of expertise. And so I think we're going to see that continue to evolve over the next couple of years across a lot of areas of the business.
That's awesome. So am I, if I'm listening in, am I worried about my job as a CSM? Is it about headcount reduction, or is there another focus that AI has?
I think if you're a CSM, the areas that your customers typically get the most benefit from interactions with you is like, how do I take the technology from the company that you represent? How do I apply that in a strategic way to my business to drive outcomes?
Yeah,
And so it's actually helping you to get into that place where you actually can help your customers benefit the most from the knowledge that you have.
yeah,
And so if I'm a CSM and I'm looking at the emerging technology in those spaces, I'm really excited
yeah,
because it means now, like, I don't have to take a lot of kind of those mundane questions that customers had. I don't have to kind of like, oh, how do I, create this report, or how do I send an email, or how do I do this thing? Now it's actually, let's talk about kind of the gaps in your usage of the product. If you use these better, here's where you could be. Here's how you compare against benchmarks in the industry. This is, an area of opportunity for you. Those are the things that you should be excited about as a CSM. Those are the conversations that I love to have.
that's awesome. So, I remember, if you remember, at Adobe, we did a big analysis and we analyzed like value add activities that CSMs are doing or should be
Yeah.
doing versus what at the time we defined as non-value added or
Yeah.
less value added. And I think what the way I hear it or the way I think about it is, it's less about replacing CSMs. It's more about augmenting and making CSMs that much more efficient and helping them to do what they do best, which is engage in a human relationship. And maybe it's taking away more of the non-value activity that CSMs are asked to do on a daily basis, or support reps or whoever on a daily basis, of research, of preparation, of summarization, of repetitive low value tasks, and maybe taking those off their plate so that they can engage in a more personal and human way. Is that how we might want to think about it?
That's a great synthesis of it, Dave. I completely agree. I think that's where we're going with from a technology perspective. And it's great to see the evolution. And you mentioned your own use of GPT and seeing the evolution of various products to be able to support things like that.
Yeah, that's great. So on a couple things, is this something that if I'm leveraging AI, do I let my customers know? Do I is that something that you share with customers? Is there a value in helping your customer base understand it, or is this more of kind of your secret weapon that you use as a company, if that makes sense?
I think like, being open and honest with them about, hey, we're trying to improve the experience for you. We're
Mhm.
using new technology to be able to do that. And actually soliciting feedback is a great way for them to realize that you're continuing to invest in them as a customer and the experience you're delivering. So, I'd say, be open and honest with them. I think they'll appreciate that. And they'll also probably value even more the human interactions that they have. I think that there are things that humans do that I don't think we have anything on the roadmap of, like, being able to build the relationships that humans have to be able to um, take the understanding of products and actually apply them to those business outcomes that they're looking for. And so I think those are the things that, if you're a CSM, you continue to add value in those areas. And I think you said it best when you were saying those value added activities, continuing to focus on those. And I think, if you're open and honest with your customers, here's the areas where you can expect kind of some assistance from AI. Here's the areas that I'm going to double down on as a CSM that they're going to appreciate those even more.
That's very cool. Well, I want to ask the audience a little bit and drop it in the chat if you can. Is how are it for those who might be leveraging AI capabilities right now? Maybe give us an example or two of how you're using it, because I see different categories how people are using AI. One is like content creation. Another is summarization. Some are using it for proactive insights of analyzing data. Nogal, our friend Nogal, she's using an analysis on MPS to summarize MPS. But what are some examples of like how you're using it today to help you in your day-to-day strategy, and we'll share some of those. I've got one quick question. Let's see. Um, this is from Patrick. So Patrick's asking if you have a very configurable or customizable product or service, each customer has a unique build. And as you grow the client base, the support of the unique build is difficult. How would you potentially leverage AI to address that kind of capacity issue? So sounds like, hey, you've got a very, a very customizable product implementation across all of them. Is there a way
Mhm.
to leverage AI in that potentially? I don't know if somebody's thought about that or not, but
Yeah.
ideas of where you envision AI helping in that kind of situation?
Yeah, we actually have done some work with a customer who they actually created products that you could use to build your own products. And so they had a very technical product set and a lot of technical questions where they needed very experienced people to be able to answer them. And so what we were able to do is we were able to kind of download a pretty massive ream of data
Mhm.
and then use that information to be able to train the model, to be able to understand kind of what are the problems that are coming in, what is the information about the product that need to be knowledgeable about. You can feed it kind of a whole bunch of different types of information, including kind of stuff from your product management team, that kind of more technical information to be able to support things like that. So I think it's actually really interesting as people are kind of seeing some of the capabilities that a product or a kind of an AI with an infinite memory has.
Yeah.
You can do some really robust things, including areas that might seem like they're very different. You can actually kind of pull the knowledge from those aggregated and use it to be able to train models that can answer those questions. So
Yeah.
um, it's something that's certainly surmountable.
Yeah, I wondered if there's a future, just kind of thinking about like where could we go in the future? Could it
Yeah,
be as easy as somebody answers a simple questionnaire
yeah.
and AI configures the rest of the data? Is there a reason that anybody would need to go in and configure, set up, or customize a software platform versus just, hey, give us your inputs and we'll configure the rest through AI? That could be somewhere where they go in the future. I'm just looking at the chat and some great ideas. So Nogo was saying analysis on MPS. Uh,
Hmm.
Mark was trying to determine themes within support tickets, which is a great thing. Like if I've got hundreds of support tickets, what are the common themes? And if I can solve
Sure.
those themes, maybe I deflect future support tickets. Bruno's talking about chatbots within the platform. Kelly creating content and exploring leveraging for customer health triggers. Um, Severio, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. Support to identify potential escalations and spot sentiment. Creating plays, coaching, and next steps. Universal search. So a lot of really cool ways that people, no goal again, cliff notes on content. Some really good ways that people are using it. I'm super impressed. I like how we've got, looks like we've got some people who are really engaging in different ways. Nogo is seems like is doing a ton of stuff.
Yeah, lots of
Um,
stuff happening on the reporting front, which is really interesting. How do you synthesize reports? How do you understand what's going on? How do you identify trends? So almost
yeah,
like analyst work. That's pretty cool.
And I think that's where I'm super excited about in the future. Like I see, one of the ways I was talking to somebody about this yesterday and kind of prepping for this. I love the ability to drop data in and just explore the data, just ask
Yeah.
questions. And I love the kind of continuous exploration that it provides.
Mm,
Some of the cool things that you can do where you can say, hey, summarize this data into a table and stuff like that, which is super fascinating.
yeah.
Um, one of the
Dave,
challenges, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say you had said something a few minutes ago where there's a world where a customer might fill in a questionnaire, answer a few questions, and it's just like you have AI that automatically configures the thing for you. And I think that's like it actually wanted to spend a minute kind of double clicking on that because I think that is like a world that's not too distant from us, where we have these like there. I don't know if any of you have ever used SAP, but they're like notorious for having these like massive like multi-year implementations. And I think like those types of implementations are going to be a thing of the past, where it's like, give me a little bit of information about what you're trying to accomplish, and it's just like you have AI that's going to automatically set the thing up for you. And I think we were talking a little bit about support earlier, where customers are coming to a support organization or to your CSMs and they're saying, "How do I do a thing?" But they really don't have any, like, they don't want to know how to do a thing. They want you to do it for them. They want the result versus the knowledge of how to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be like another step, another dimension to the way that we interact with customers to deliver results. One of the things that we found at HubSpot is if we were able to drive results with customers, we could increase their half life in a fairly significant way. And so the the barrier for most customers in terms of getting value out of your products is like time, it's education, it's like the technical capabilities to be able to do the thing they need to do. But if your customer is able to ask a question, you're able to deliver that result in a seamless manner, all of a sudden you have the ability to be able to drive up your revenue retention, retain those customers over the long term. So those are some things that I think we're going to see that I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah. I'll put you on the spot a little bit, maybe just for everyone's. Most people know about OpenAI and Chat GTP. Are there other platforms out there that you found that? And I'll even ask the audience: are there other platforms out there or tools that they found that are particularly helpful? That are kind of this next latest gen of or next gen in AI that the group here could potentially benefit from.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that there's maybe kind of a quick breakdown of the current structure of AI right now. And so you have LLMs like OpenAI, which is like a chat GPT as an interface to that. And then on top of that, you also have like application layer products. And then you'll have kind of like consumers kind of living on top of that. And so there are kind of competitors to OpenAI. I think, Cloud is one. Hugging Face is something where a lot of companies are using that in terms of storing their models, building kind of proprietary models, and they're able to store those, check those in, kind of like GitHub for models. And then you have a like kind of a new emerging class of companies that are building it's kind of like AI first that are living on a lot of those. And so I think there's quite a few companies. There's some like pretty cool companies who are doing stuff around like building PowerPoints. And I don't know about you all, but building PowerPoints is not where I have the most fun. And so having an AI that will build PowerPoints for me, if I give it the information, is something that I think is pretty cool. So that's one of the areas I like that. I see someone mentioned Fireflies.
Yeah.
Fireflies is great. I've been using that one a lot as well. I think they actually just released the capability of like recording as well. Zoom is doing some really interesting stuff on the AI space, so it's been cool to see some of those new and kind of emerging capabilities unlocked with these companies.
Yeah, I've kind of enjoyed using Dharmesh at the one of the founders of HubSpot did one called
Yeah.
ChatSpot, or I think is right.
Yep.
And I like it's been kind of interesting how they've embedded that within HubSpot to do standard HubSpot research, reporting, stuff like that,
Yep.
updates, but also then expanded it to be able to do research. I do a ton of research on there using those tools, and so where is this going? Do you see a day? I don't know. I mean, do you see a day where software is largely conversational in a sense? Does that make sense?
I think conversation is it's natural, right? You don't have to teach someone how to have a conversation. And so it's like it's almost like a native way for us to be able to communicate as humans. And we're teaching computers how to interact with us.
Yeah.
So, is there something that's even like kind of the next thing beyond that of like, okay, well, actually, we can interact with computers through our minds? I know there's a lot of things that are happening in that space right now, but maybe a few years down the road. But I do think that that's the way that like we're going to want to engage and interact with other things around us versus like, let me learn a proprietary language, or let me kind of learn a new vernacular in order to be able to communicate with the system that I buy and to do the things I wanted to do. And so I do think that you're going to see more and more of that. But I think your analysis of where we're going, I think it's going to be spot on, and the uh, design components that we're seeing today are going to be very different in a few years.
Yeah. How do you balance how do you balance the human experience and the AI experience? And is there a threshold? I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of we as customer success leaders deal with ratios, whether we
Yeah.
like them or not. A
Yep.
ratio, you might either have CSMs managing 5 customers or 500 customers. And so I think there's two questions. How do you balance the human and the AI experience to enrich the human experience? And then will there always be um, a a line where you just can't really deliver a good human experience? Will that move up, or does that essentially stay the same? I don't know. I don't know. That makes
I think it changes a lot of things. And so um, the way that I would approach the utilization of technology along with kind of my segment needs as a CS leader is, I would say, what's the experience that I want to deliver? And Dave, I don't know if you remember this, but we went through our segmentation at Adobe and we said, okay, here's the segments, and then what's the experience we want to deliver? And what we said is like we want to deliver the same experience across every segment.
Yep.
The difference there is that the channels is communicated through, or the channels you're interacting with those customers through. I think that same application is true today. The channel or the mediums that you're using have evolved, but the same thing is true of like understanding the experience you want to deliver, mapping out how you go about doing that, and who's responsible for, or what is responsible for delivering it now.
Yeah.
And so, any experience worth having is deliberate. It's mapped out, it's created, and it has to evolve with your customers. And so, if you take the time to be able to do that, you'll be able to give a great experience to your customers that will get better over time and hopefully make your CFO happy when they come and ask you for some additional dollars back.
Yeah. Here's one interesting concept that I just thought, just as I was thinking about this as you're answering it, is a lot of AI is kind of training the AI in a sense. And could we, I've recently been trying to do with ChatGPT is try to train it to write in my voice in the
Sure.
in the style that I have. So I actually have gone in and had to analyze some of my writing and kind of
Yeah.
say, what kind of writing is this? And
Yeah.
it kind of says, authentic, quite, and then I say, hey, can you write an article on this topic using this tone and this
Yeah.
voice?
Yeah.
Wonder if it could be a situation where we could basically, as CSMs and leaders, have our own personal assistant in a sense, in that
Yeah.
says that, like, I my daughter writes for a social influencer. She kind of responds to her DMs, right, on social
Yeah.
media, and she does it for her. And I know a lot of other assistants do that. I wonder if that
Yeah.
could be it, where it really trains to be your voice and your style, and you could really leverage it as if it's an extension of you in the future. I don't know, just brainstorming. How cool would that be to have your own personal assistant who did things
Yeah.
your style and your way that felt natural and unique?
I think it's distinctly possible, and I think like if we were to take the level of personalization, from a company perspective, down to that level, I was recently at HubSpot, so imagine having your personal kind of assistant from HubSpot,
Yeah.
where you could interact and engage with them on anything related to HubSpot. You can text them, "Hey, how do I create this report? How do I do this thing? What is my last bill? How many marketing contacts do I have?" And I think that's like where we're going to be very soon, where you actually have these personal assistants that you engage with from these companies. And maybe we all have our own personal assistants as well. I know that I would love to have one. So yeah, I think that would be pretty cool, Dave. And I think it's something that's very doable. One of the challenges right now is that you can't really train LLMs. You can add context for it, and then you can do some prompt engineering, like think like this, do this thing like this, but you don't actually train the LLM. So it actually creates these like hallucinations. And I'm sure you've seen them in some of the
Yeah.
output from it, where it's like says things that are just wildly untrue. And so that's part of the challenge of like, how do you apply some of this stuff to actually like answering business problems, or like, taking on some of the CSM's work or some of the support's work. There's like, you're trying to mitigate those at the same time you're trying to make sure you're delivering that delightful experience.
That's cool. So it seems like a lot of the models right now are they're, if I understand it, the data that they're using for it is a year or two old. Is that right? The knowledge
Yeah,
that they're pulling from.
yeah, it's a little bit behind. There was like a Bing plugin for Chat GPT that was giving you like more current information. I think they said we're going to hold off on that because there's some stuff going on that's a little weird. But yeah, they're a little bit dated right now, and so I'm sure we'll continue to evolve like the availability of data. But yeah, it's not quite up to speed. You're not going to use it for real time stock trading anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. So a question on here is it fair to think the clients might now think that if they reach out to a vendor, they will just be getting automated responses and won't be heard? Do you think that that's what some may feel is like, hey, I'm basically interacting with a smart knowledge base. I'm not going to ever be able to interact with a human. Is that where we're going?
You know, I I hope so. And the reason why is like, you think about some of the support experiences that we've all probably had dealing with, kind of support at an airline where you're like, you're frustrated and you're on hold and you're waiting for the people to catch up with the massive queues. Like AI is massively scalable. Like it can interact with you, it can engage with you, it can understand your problems, help you solve it much faster.
Yeah.
And so I kind of hope so. The other thing about AI is it has like kind of infinite knowledge. And so you can train it a whole bunch of things. It's not going to forget it. It's not going to fall asleep in like their onboarding class and not know that particular piece of information. And so I think it's like you want your front line of interaction to actually be AI because it's going to deliver a more delightful experience. Now, when you have a frustrated customer who's upset about a thing and they need someone to talk to them and calm them down, that's not AI. That's where that human interaction, that human engagement is going to be. But I hope that first aspect of it is AI. It'll make all of our lives a little bit easier.
Yeah, I've often said in a customer journey, a lot of times customers don't care where they get their answers or the information from. They just want them and they want them accurate and good and fast.
Yeah.
So in context of that, back in our Adobe days, it was a human, right? Whether it's support or our billing team or whatever, consulting, it doesn't matter who.
Yeah.
The CSM is kind of the central point of contact, but not the single point of contact. And now this is kind of taking it to another level. It's like that's true. Customers may not care to talk to humans. In fact, it much might be easier, but maybe having the AI having the capability of recognizing when they need to have their own kind of warm handoff to a human, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think those exit points from the AI to human is something that's pretty important. And I think what you were saying about kind of going back to our Adobe days is something that really resonated with me. Where what we did is, I think the best CSMs did this, is that you understood that you had a team of people to support the customer.
Mhm.
You had amazing, kind of technical account managers, and you had a salesperson, and you had, someone on the services side. You had this whole team of people, and your job as a CSM was to know, like, okay, I'm the central point of contact for the customer. It doesn't mean I have to know everything or do everything. It means I
Yep.
have to know who to bring in for what. And I actually think that you're adding like an AI agent to kind of that toolkit that you have as a CSM or as a support leader, where it's another tool you have to be able to create a great experience for your customers and deliver a fantastic experience for them. So I think it's additive.
Very cool. All right, I'm going to do something we normally don't do, but I'm going to open it up for if somebody wants to ask a live question. Um, so if anybody wants to ask a live question to Jonathan or myself, feel free to raise your hand in the chat, and I will unmute you and allow you to ask a live question. What else have I asked you that was top of mind for you? Do you have any other concepts that I haven't asked or haven't been asked by the group that might be interesting to share, Jonathan, as we kind of wind down the last couple minutes?
Yeah, I think you did a really good job of highlighting what's top of mind for people as they're thinking about AI, Dave. I think maybe one additional thing that has come up in a lot of conversations that I've had with people is like, how do I get started with it, right? It's like this thing, and people are talking about how do I really kind of get started with it? And I think it's like, jump in, use, ChatGPT to understand like some of the capabilities of it. But as it pertains to your business, kind of going through and say, what is it that I want to derive from my use of AI? Do I want to create cost efficiencies? Do I want to create improvements in my customer experience? And I've talked to a few companies that are very thoughtful about this, where they say, actually, like, from a support perspective, from a scale CS perspective, we actually want to have 50% of kind of volume being answered by AI agents. And so that creates the cost efficiencies they're looking for. And so I think just making sure that you're thoughtful about it, you understand what you're trying to derive from it, and then making sure that you're making smart decisions in terms of the vendors that you're bringing in to deliver that is really important.
Very cool. Well, good. Well, this has been an amazing discussion. So fun. I like my mind just explodes on this stuff. I just love to geek out about like potentials and ideas. And
Yeah.
certainly as a founder of a software company, there's so many things I'm like excited about exploring. Jonathan, where can people find you if they're looking, if they've enjoyed this conversation? Where should they find you?
Yeah, you can join me on Twitter, now X. My handle is JC1. You can also add me on LinkedIn. I'm typically on there, available through messages. Feel free to connect with me there. So this was fantastic, Dave. I appreciate you having me. It always, like I said at the beginning of this, I always learn something coming out of these conversations, and so appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
No, we're grateful to have you, Jonathan. You're welcome anytime. Thanks for all the thought leadership, and super excited to see your how things work and your the success of your new venture. And thanks for jumping on. It's been great to hang out again today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you coming.
All right, everybody. Hey, thanks again for joining us. Remember, every Tuesday through the month of August, we're going to have the summer webinar series. Some great more discussions and presentations over the coming weeks. So we'll see you here next Tuesday, same time, same place. Christy will be back. But thanks for joining us today, and have a great week. See you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.